Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So this might be a bonus video for today or this week or whenever I decide to post this, but a few of you guys had questions about the wet brush that is from that kind of like free brush pack that I showed in one of my other videos, and I primarily use it to do like values and stuff on like my sketches, and it's primarily like my favorite way to do sketches. I can show you guys a few examples. I think the most recent one you guys probably would have saw is this one. So the little sketch page of D8, like this. So you can see it has kind of like this watercolor texture, but for me I feel like it feels more like a ink wash. Like if you're using more of kind of waterproof ink, if you use waterproof ink before and used it to do like values and stuff for your drawings or illustrations, you probably have an easier time understanding how to use this brush more so than maybe like a watercolor brush. So I'm going to give you guys a quick kind of like demo and explanation of how I use it and how I understand how to use it. I never put the opacity to 100% for my brushes because I like to gradually build value or darkness, or like I just like to gradually build up. So I have this color preset just because this is the color that I use the most whenever I draw or sketch. This is what I use the most. So I usually have this kind of kind of like this grayish beige background that I use for my sketches, along with this kind of purpley color, and this is what I usually have preset. So I'm going to show you guys on a white part of the canvas so that you guys can see a little bit better on how I use this brush. I'm going to change the brush to a kind of a dark gray. Okay, so I think the easiest way to understand how to use this brush is first of all just testing it out, using it. I like to not put the opacity up to 100%. It's just, I think there's a little bit more leeway if you leave it maybe below 100. So I like to think of this brush kind of like permanent ink wash, or like a waterproof ink wash. So after it dries, you can't budge it. That's basically what I'm saying. So let's say if you put down a solid mark, I'm using like full pressure right now. So this brush relies a lot on pressure. So you're gonna have to kind of play around with that. So as you can see, if you use full pressure and you just using a constant pressure, you're gonna get these kind of harsh edges around here, kind of like this hard edge, like as if watercolor or ink dries, it usually leaves a little bit of a harsh edge depending on if the water was kind of pooling from the center outwards. And as you can see, after you lay it down, if you try laying down another color, you can see that it gets darker where it overlaps, but also this edge is still very crisp. Now, I like to put the washes underneath my sketch because I do believe that this kind of overlaps my sketch a little bit and it makes it look a little bit faded or fuzzy, so I don't get that crisp color. So I definitely like putting this underneath my sketch layer. This is where most people have confusion. So just looking at how I'm gonna do this, you guys probably can't really tell exactly how I'm quote unquote or like theoretically blending this. So the idea of feathering out the edges is due to your own pressure. So like I said before, if you're using full pressure, like just pressing pretty hard and a little bit consistently, you get these kind of hard edges on the outside. But if you like to gradually fade out and blend, you can go as hard as you want, as long as you don't lift up your pen. Ooh, I actually haven't done that before. So, okay, so let me try this again. So you can do this with a lot of pressure, and as long as you don't lift up your pen, as long as you're using less pressure as you're moving outwards, you are gonna budge the edge a little bit. Now, so, See, I don't know how to explain this. Okay, so it's similar to ink wash in the way that pretend you lay down your ink like this, and it's still wet. You can still feather out the edges for the most part, and once you feather out the edges, you can still kind of like move it around. As you can see, I lift up my pencil there, but so yeah, so if you feather out the edges, this is how you're gonna pretty much like blend, because as soon as you lift off your pencil, you are no longer able to move this whole area. So to blend one area to another, you would have to either overlap or just slowly blend it into the other color by lessening your pressure to lighten the opacity and feather out the edge. So I like to do this. So if pretend like I want to keep everything within the shape. Oops. My palm just got rid of it. So you can do this where you're overlapping and then slowly use less pressure to kind of blend. Now this is gonna make more sense when I do a few like more demos and you guys will be able to see how to do this. So the thing why people have confusion is because you guys can't actually see how much pressure I'm using when using like a pencil like this. You probably think I'm using the same amount of pressure the entire time because that's what it looks like, and I think that's why a lot of people think I'm like constantly scratching the iPad, because you think I'm using like a whole lot of pressure when I'm doing this. Okay, so I'm gonna do a demo on here and here. So I'm gonna do this one first, and this one is kind of how I usually like to do my sketches, like I mentioned before. I use this kind of just to put values down. I don't really use it to yeah, I use it mostly for putting down values. So I kind of leave this to be kind of messy. I'm gonna change it. I usually use the same color as whatever my sketch is if I want it to be a little bit more on the monochromatic side. So I like to blend out mostly when I'm doing like skin. And I'll show you a demo on the white one so you guys can see how to build up color, and if you want to use color as a mean to add, or like use this brush to add color instead of kind of like this monochromatic this kind of monochromatic look. As you can see, you can blend it out quite a bit. There's a little bit of a edge still, but that if you can probably use like way less pressure, once again, you can probably get better results. And sometimes it's nice to have kind of harder edges for some stuff. So I'm gonna quickly do his sweater. What is going on? So this is just like one pass. Now I really like using it because it kind of gives these really nice like textured flat areas though. So you can go back in, darken up some areas, you can fade out a little bit. His sweater shouldn't be that dark. I should make his apron a lot darker. But if you want to keep building up value, you just have to keep going over and over the edges. Or not the edges, your color basically. So now you can see that this is similar in value. So I'm just gonna darken it by putting kind of like pass number 2. I'm gonna do pass number 3. Maybe I want to fade it out because I want to make this darker a lot quicker. And then for his hair, because his hair is kind of on the darker side, or it's kind of like a good mid-tone, I think. So you can play around with this a little bit more. I actually usually like putting harder edges, I think, near the top. Now with a brush like this, if you don't want to have too much like overlap like this, it's good to do things in sections where you know you can kind of stop and lift up your pen so you can start a new section. Because doing everything in one kind of go is a little bit annoying sometimes. Then once you lift up your pencil, you can do second round. It's really windy today. I hope you guys can't hear too much of the wind. So I don't know when this video is gonna come out, but hopefully this will hopefully this will help you guys a little bit. Probably gonna darken up this quite a bit. So I'm just going about like 4 passes of this to get a fairly dark value. Okay, so this is kind of like a monochromatic look. Now on the white one, I'm gonna change the gain a little bit so you guys can see a little bit clearer. Okay, so on the white, it'll be easier for me to add color, because another thing is that you can't add light colors to dark colors, so you can't really glaze the same way you would probably glaze with watercolor, but as long as you're working from light to dark with this brush, you should be fine. Like, I'll do an example really quick. You can't do this very well. It looks very weird, so I definitely recommend going from light to dark while using this brush. So I'm going to do 2 passes for his skin first, just to get more of a base color that I like to use for Masaki. So after you have kind of like a base color, you guys can't really see this that well, why? Okay, so once I have a base color set for him, I'm gonna change it to more of a saturated peachy color so we can do a little bit more flush cheeks. So as you can see, I'm just going over and over again. I'm feathering out as I'm moving outwards, just to make it a little bit softer. Now you're gonna have to be careful where you're overlapping some of this color, because this brush does like to overlap and make things darker. So if you have anything like where the skin's kind of bleeding at the top where the hair is, it might cause issues, it might not, depending on how dark the hair is compared to the skin color. For Masaki's case, because his hair is like a little bit darker than his skin, actually significantly darker, it's more of a darker mid-tone color. So as you can see, I'm still adding kind of this peachy color. And then, like, I really like this brush, honestly. So I think it's my favorite brush in terms of like having this nice watercolor texture, or like this ink wash feel. And it's quite easy to use once you understand how to deal with like the pressure and doing things kind of like in one pass rather than several passes. I think he's looking pretty cute. So if you want to have white after the fact, I definitely recommend just using the eraser tool with the same brush so that you can get kind of like the opposite effect and add lighter tones if you really need to. Obviously, I don't think it's as necessary, but I'm gonna add a quick kind of green color to his eyes. Which probably won't show up that much, but that's okay. Okay, I'm gonna do his sweater next. I'm gonna do his hair last. So So if you accidentally lift up your pencil before wanting to stop, you can just always go over it and slowly blend out towards it or around it and try to make it look a little bit more seamless. I don't know if I chose the right color for his sweater. It looks a little bit more dull, but that's okay. So let's see how this blends on top. Definitely took a lot more passes. Okay, so we'll do his sweater, or not his sweater, his apron and his hair next. So you find the appropriate color so you can kind of do this. Now, usually when I use this brush, I like using it in conjunction with like the white of the paper, or in this case, well, in this case it's definitely the white of the paper. In this case for here, I would be using whatever is the lightest tone, which will be my background color usually, because layering from light to dark, most likely your background color will be the lightest if you're working in the same way I am. If you're putting in the background like afterwards, then it can probably be a different color, but see, as long as you're kind of like blending out the edge when returning back into some other wash where you kind of stop the color, you can really just kind of blend it out and have it a little bit more seamless. So I'm actually going to do the tips of his hair first, the back of his head. I'll do this portion too. So I did that all in one pass, and then another section. So I'm gonna darken it near the shine part of his hair and then slowly blend it out. So I'm leaving more of the harsher edges near the top. This makes me just want to play with watercolors more. I just want to paint. Just remember, if you want like softer edges, then you would have to use less pressure. And you can gradually do that, because I don't know if you can do it super abruptly. Probably not. Most of it's like you have to get pretty like gradual, I think. I'm actually missed a color, so I'm gonna color in his eyebrow really quick. So the color that I missed, is this the same color that I used? Yes, it was. I usually like adding kind of like a muted purple to indicate shadow for the skin. And I actually don't remember doing this that much with this technique, so I don't know how well this color is gonna show up. Kind of interesting, but I really like the look of using this brush, especially like with your sketches. Like as I mentioned before, I use this like brush a lot when doing sketches, so you know, you can see the kind of the difference of how I usually use it, and you can definitely use it with color, and it kind of gives this kind of like ink wash look, which I think looks really cute. So hopefully this helps you guys a little bit. And I can probably show you guys a few more examples where I've used this. I've used it for my plant studies for some of these. It was a little bit difficult to use it on a darker background like this, but as long as you keep building up color, if you don't mind building up color, then you probably could use light on like a darker color. think I use it mostly for my OC stuff. So I've done it with Koji here. I really like the texture. I think it's really pretty. So yeah, I used it here too. So I usually, like I said, I just basically use one color for out, and because the opacity is set to a little bit lower and you can gradually build up color, you can get a lot of different, like your mid-tones, a little bit lighter tones. You can definitely kind of feather it out to get some softer areas. It's just really fun to use. Another way to use it, I think I've used it a few times. I think another one would have been like, I think I tried doing it for Bonbongi right here, which I think this is really pretty. So if you're using kind of like really light colors, but then you're kind of like intermingling like different kind of hues and stuff, or just different colors in general, I think it looks really pretty like this. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this, and hopefully it kind of helps you like learn about how to use that brush a little bit, or at least that's how I use the brush. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll talk to you guys next time, and this is probably just a bonus video anyways, so see you Wednesday. Bye!